All right, so this is our monthly internal stakeholder call for the Verify testing group. And Mech was going to kick us off with just some follow-ups from the last call, I believe, or another topic before I cut him off before the recording. So Mech, why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, I'll let you start first. I need to copy over some links on.
Okay.
We made a lot of progress on storing test results in issues as test cases and having a historical view on all the tests in the end-to-end test. So I'll do a demo last time, but we can go with the follow-up on code changes and then how to vocalize.
Yeah, wanted to just a follow-up from the last time. You were talking about finding failures faster. Is that the one that I was? Two instances code changing. Oh, the code changing but test not changing. A item that we have teed up for, I believe 12.10. I'll have to double check and see if that one got just booted out. Is a bit where we'll be able to pull the tests forward that match up with code that just changed. So we'll run those as a new stage after build, but before the rest of the test stages run. The idea is that we would give back a lot of pipeline minutes if those things fail. So you don't have to, one of the test cases or one of the anecdotal bits of evidence that we ran into with an internal developer was I had to wait 45 minutes for the use cases or the unit tests rather to run for the code that I changed. So I just sat there waiting until I actually got confidence that my unit tests ran. So if we pull that forward, we can give back a lot of time, especially in a failure scenario where, hey, your brand new unit test failed. You don't have to wait 40 minutes to get it. You can get that information in maybe 20 minutes. So we can save a bunch of runner time internally, but also a lot of developer time in sitting around waiting for a build and unit test results. So I wanted to just point you at that and see, does that actually resonate? Like, is that the same use case, or did I misinterpret as I was rereading the notes what you intended with your call out last time?
I think let me go back and reread a little bit. No, I think I'm supportive of doing this. My comments was along the lines of when we roll this out, I think we may incur additional or extra CI minutes when things are overlapping a bit until you can confidently say that, okay, we're testing the right things. Let's kill the rest of the pipeline. And I'm looking forward to see what the feedback is. And I don't know how we want to roll this out. I would recommend starting with one of the satellite projects, meaning either workhorse, runner, Gitly, but not the big main project yet, just to get some feedback from everyone. When we roll this out, I will also let Kyle's team, like Remy, Genshin, and all the people that are tracking the cost of CI, that, hey, this is coming in. We expect a slight bump in CI minute costs this month, and then we need to work on, okay, let's turn it on, let's turn it off, similar to how we did with merge trains on the handbook project, and see where we get fast feedback there. Yeah. But other than that, I think let's try it at the unit test level first. I'm reluctant to put the end-to-end tests in the main repo in the fray because that has its own quarantine process and all that stuff. So yeah, let's get fast feedback and see the correctness of it. How far along do you think we are to test this out?
Drew's actually been the one who's been working on this, and I think you have a template proof of concept.
Nothing that's really shareable yet. I ran into some bug fixes that we need to make the template work. So I've been working on that, and the kind of good news is that it's a really easy work in progress to share, because the easiest thing to do is just going to be some CI configuration. So once I start trying it out myself, I can pop over into quality whenever I have something and say, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense in your workflow? Would you implement it a different way? And I think it'll be pretty easy for us to work closely with quality engineering on that.
Yeah, I guess the use case that we were thinking, Mech, was that this would happen probably only in merge requests first. So not necessarily in the master pipeline run. We trust that at that point, your unit tests are all already passing. This is, as an individual developer, you're testing that change early and you're seeing your new tests or tests against files you changed or added being run first before the rest of the unit tests run. So if you do have a failure, I mean, it's almost, you can think about it like a linting stage where you're getting that feedback earlier. It's just a linted test kind of a stage. It's the way I've been thinking about it. Terminology is probably all wrong. It doesn't make any sense together. But that's the way that we've been, that I was positioning this or thinking about the use case was for an individual developer like a Drew. I don't have to wait 45 minutes for the big RSpec test to run. I get a very small stage to run first.
It's like an expansion of a developer just running their own tests. Now they're running all the tests that have something to do with the particular files that they've been working on.
Yeah, I'd considered even trying to roll this out for merge request pipelines that have WIP at the beginning of the title, because to me, those pipelines are extremely likely to fail. And so it'd be interesting to see like how granular we can get and find out which, well, I would just have to do it experimentally, but quality probably has a lot of at least anecdotal information on like how specific can we get with the kinds of pipelines that we think will see gains.
I agree with that. That makes sense. If you like, feel free to go into the engineering productivity channel to see what the folks there have feedback. I'll tag the team here as well so they can digest the information. Okay, and it's slated for 13.0, which is it when we think it's going to be done, or do you have an earlier date where we can dog food early, like an alpha or beta version of it?
Because we are, the MVC we've been talking about is really, it's a CI config, and just I'm fixing the variable that we want to use to be able to do this. We could potentially dog food it as soon as we want. There's no, you don't have to wait for a merge or review, or it's not what you think of as a proper feature release. We're actually thinking about a blog post would be a great way to release it, just as a sort of like, hey, we figured out we can configure our pipelines this way, and we're seeing big gains in this particular use case. Like, that's something we're doing over here. And so that can go in, we can dog food that very early, I think.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool. Mech, before we jump into the roadmap deck updates, do you want to talk through your use case on the test case reporting?
Yeah, let me move that thing up, and then I'll run through it there, and then 1 second, and then I will go ahead and share screen.
Awesome. Thank you.
So folks are on the same page. You see my Google Docs now.
Yep.
So we have been started using experimenting this. This was an idea we had. And it's also in line with where is it now? Includes test results with release evidence, I guess. But there was also an idea from Sid where we wanted to use CI to update the status of the test case somewhere, and the idea was there. We took it a step further. We are now using GitLab CI to update our test cases. I'm going to take a step back and have you digest what we use as test cases. And it's essentially a project with issues and with the labels telling us what are the types of tests. So these are the end-to-end tests. In the end-to-end layer, there's like a 3-layer pyramid. There's like the API tests, API backend end-to-end tests, the browser, which is the GUI, and then the visual tests, which is very minimal right now, but those are the planned test layers in the top of the pyramid. And we have like a label for suite, a reliable smoke suite, smoke suite and reliable suite. These are the tests that currently block the release process for Marin's team. And then we have status labels that signifies, is it failing on staging, is it passing on staging, or failing in production, passing in production, and all that jazz. Now, go into the issues. This is essentially the list of test cases. It's a little bit rough right now because we haven't cleaned up our naming convention. A number of these all of these are now actually updated and created dynamically through CI. So there's no human intervention in any of these at all. It just posts results. I'll click one good example here. I think we currently just reset this, but you click on a test case. This is automatically posted from this job, and this test failed. And we have everything in one place. We have the error stack, the error message stack, and currently I know, okay, it's passing in master. I think staging hasn't, we don't probably run this test in staging, but it was passing in staging, it will have the staging passing label here. And then in reverse, this is like a really heavy one. So this is an example of like, it's been failing a lot. So when we look at this, we know exactly this test, it's failing in both master and staging, it's failing in iTheats as well. And you scroll down, you see the latest stack base, and then the engineers have one place to track. And we are pairing this with the GitLab insights that we built last year. We want to render what is the state of staging right now, what's the state of production right now, and then how many tests are automated, how many tests are planned, and then having DevOps stage statuses on the health of these test cases. Well, so we're using what we have and putting them together and getting like just one single pane of glass view on the state of the test cases and where they're being run currently as part of the release process. So I'll pause there for questions, and yeah.
So it looks like these issues are being updated by the bot, or is it always a new issue on every test run? I didn't quite get that.
It'll be updated by the bot. There was like a bug recently where it continued to create new issues, but if you look at this one is an example of it being the same issue updated multiple times. Okay. So every run, so this is from master, this is from master, and it is from staging.
And so then will that issue live in perpetuity, or are you going to version that based on like a release?
No, it's the current iteration this is like the single pane of glass view, so it will live forever. Okay. Unless you want to clear it out, just close the issue. If the issue is closed, the logic is that if there's no issue you can find, it would just go ahead and create a new one. But we're using issues for it, so that's like a workaround that allows us to clean up, reset, and enable it again if we need to reset stuff. So yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm also curious about how the information that's here differs from then maybe what's showing up in the JUnit test report. It looks like some of that data is going to be similar of what gets pulled over, like stack trace and things like that.
Yes, we plan to integrate the JUnit reporter into here. Maybe if the JUnit report is, I believe we're building on top of the test results JSON from the JUnit report right now for this. And if we can have cross links or deep links, we can remove the stack trace here and link to the JUnit report instead. But this is like the really rough first iteration of it. But yes, we want to deduplicate things. If information is already there, we're just going to have a cross link to it. So you can just go and click there. One of the reasons that we lean on just putting it here, dumping it here, is because sometimes we clean the history, and then some engineers sometimes want to go back like 3 months to say how often has this been failing. Yeah. We at least have something, and then we turn this off once you have the historical JUnit view that you're working on, and then that's going to supplant this instead. But right now we really need this because we need the whole list of test cases, and then how each of them are doing historical wise and then environment wise.
Gotcha. Okay, so you have a cross section of both the test, the history, and then the environment that it was run in.
Yep.
Sounds like.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you mentioned 3 months. What are generally the parameters that you're looking back within those test cases? Like, what is the most actionable time window that you might have?
It's very heavy right now in terms of process. So we have an issue that investigates the failure, and then we have like the 4 main types of failure. If it's like a stale test, which means people just didn't update the tests, but the feature got updated. A flaky test, which we are staunchly looking at every day, like, hey, add fault tolerance to the tests, into intelligent weights. Test environments, which we need help from the developers and also infrastructure, hey, it's probably some rate limiting. And I forget there's another one, but like there's like a triage process before things can move to a high value proposition. So there's some human interaction there, which we can't automate right now.
Gotcha.
But happy to let all of you know. So anything here that can be made into a feature, by all means, it's green grass and open field.
James, the if you were looking for the window, I don't know, probably it's more when we're investigating flaky tests than anything else that we're trying to see that kind of history. I don't think, Mac, we've gone back. I mean, we lose artifacts and things like that in the pipeline over time, but I don't think we need probably more than a 3-month window at most for looking at flaky tests, or would you want something longer?
The longer we go back, the less fidelity. So I think if we're looking at 6 months or longer, you're right. I don't think we need the level of detail of stack traces, but we probably want to know, like, 100 tests, how many of them failed because of stale code? How many of them failed because of test environment? So if it's summarized, that's good enough. Like the fidelity can be lowered as we travel back in time.
Yeah, the fidelity and metadata or extra data, like you said, the stack trace might go away. It's interesting to think about. Then you have, like, if you're looking at test history over time and you see it's passing, then a fail, labeling that failure as why it failed that time. I hadn't thought about that nuance of, I was just thinking about, I just need to know if it's passing or failing. And then based on, like, it passes 3 times, it fails, it passes 3 times, it fails, we would lump that into, well, maybe it's just flaky, right? If no code is changing and it's randomly failing, it's a flaky thing. And I also hadn't picked up the nuance of, well, maybe it's environmental flake, or maybe it's some other kind of flake, like dependency flake or something.
Yes, I am gonna consult my encyclopedia here, which is my email. I'm gonna try to pull up something, and so feel free to let me know if I'm totally off. But I found this issue. I'll cross-link it here in the documentation as well. That there's like types of test failure, and we use these labels now. So there's like the failure scope labels. So there's flaky tests, test environments. There's broken tests. Yeah, I'll copy it over. I think it's this.
One other question for you all. Is this capturing every single test run, regardless of environment? Like, do you, or is it just on, like, merged test runs? So is it, go ahead.
So we have, we say where it's found as well. If it's failing in staging, so there's staging or canary, but these are applicable to any environments because they can fail in these 4 main modes.
Okay, I guess I was thinking through, like, I'm still always just thinking about the developer use case of, I have a work in progress MR. I want to see then history of that test. Do I look at history for my current branch? Do I look at history of my target branch? Where am I getting history from? And thinking about it that way, or is that just one history of this test running everywhere? Because that's probably, I wouldn't think that that'd be useful.
It can be useful. I mean, because if you look at some of the reasons we have some of the failures, flaky test and broken test are, I think, a little more obvious. Broken test, we just have a bug in the test code itself, and that shouldn't matter which environment it's run in. It's going to fail. Flaky test means maybe we're not taking into account some sort of timing issues or something else within the test. Kind of still a bug in the test, in my opinion. But I think I wouldn't care where it was running. I would want to know if it was failing in those environments.
Yeah.
Against stale test, same thing. And then our other one, failure test environment, just that's the one that pinpoints, hey, our flakiness here, our failures are due to some sort of instability in the environment it's running. So
Yep.
I think
Okay.
maybe just that last one is probably the one that applies to your comment. But I think the first three we definitely want to see across anywhere. I don't know, Mac, do you have a different idea about that?
If we were to apply to other work streams, you mean like feature branches and things like that? I think it might be too much noise to use all of it, because these make sense when you have an on-call process behind it, like what we do now to help the delivery team. Like everybody, like quality is on call, looking at pipelines every weekday. So it makes sense to have this. If we were to apply this to like a feature branch where only one person or two person are working on it, I think having something baked into the CI feature where, hey, this stack trace is in the app, it's probably a bug. This stack trace errors out in the test. Maybe it's like a test. So just have that 2080 line where, is it a bug or is it a issue with the test, or is it issue with the code itself? So something really, really simple would be more helpful.
Yeah, I was thinking if you are on a feature branch, you probably want to see like test results of the last 10 test runs or some number of test runs on your target branch. Like when it's run there, how is it behaving? But
Yes.
this is really helpful. And
Yes.
I'm going to pick on Alex a little bit and see if he has any perspective on this from your side of the house.
Before I pass on to Alex, before I forget, something that was really useful when I used TeamCity is when the CI reported only the differences in test results from the last run. And that was really useful for feature branch, because that's what the developers care about. Like, I pushed a change, what was different from the last time? And because it's still fresh in their memory, that's the most actionable information for them. So I'll pass on to Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't really have a lot of thoughts on this myself. I do very much like the idea of only showing the differences between the last test, because especially if it's like a really really long test that runs forever and gives you a bunch of output, sometimes you don't really care about that anymore. You already, especially like deprecation notices. We get a lot of that with Terraform, for example. There's a lot of like, oh, this isn't used anymore. And that's great. But, if we're trying to fix something else, we don't need to see that every time. So that's one of my favorite things I've heard. But I don't have many other thoughts on it.
All right. All right, well, let's jump into then the roadmap deck, unless anybody has any closing thoughts on that. Thank you, Mech, for that demo. That was really interesting. That should help inform that historic use case MVC quite a bit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. If I can find where I just threw that window. There it is. I was on a customer call before this doing a demo, so I have about 27 windows open right now. And hopefully everybody can see, oh, not that share. Verify testing roadmap. I see a thumbs up. Thanks, Drew. Vision hasn't changed. Themes are the same as last time. All this comes from the CI/CD direction page. Multi-platform support, speedy and reliable pipelines, and doing powerful things easily are the prevailing themes across the directory, across the stage, rather. So I'm going to jump right into the roadmap. The epics that are in active development, we're still working on introduction of accessibility testing, moving from planned to minimal. This will be our group's first jump into the new UX scorecard for maturity process. So we're going to be going through that after we introduce the next feature, the accessibility MR widget. And actually, I'm tentatively cautious that we'll be able to move beyond minimal into actually viable with that change. Being able to solve the job to be done of a developer wants to see how the change that they've made has impacted the accessibility of their app, of their web app. We think that we'll be able to solve that job to be done. That'll actually make that a viable product category for us. So that's pretty exciting. Beyond that, bringing unit testing up to more of a complete by finding failures faster is another interesting project that we're working on. Visual review tools, making those usability reviews faster and more effective. Some of the issues in there include things like being able to add a screenshot onto your MR comment so that if you are leaving comments on the MR through the review app and the visual review tools, you're not also having to take your own screenshot, go back in and find your comment, edit it, and add it. It's just all one nice, simple workflow. And we're talking with the design team, or the team on the design category, about how do we make the design tab and interaction with designs, that experience look a lot more like or be similar to the visual review tool, so that users who are using both don't have a disjointed experience. You're able to have the same type of experience, leaving comments on both. And how do we then start to incorporate some of those design artifacts over individual reviews? We think there's some opportunity there. So we're in some initial discussions about, is there a problem to be solved where you have, or where you can't see in visual review tools the design without opening another window, going back to the initial issue and looking at the designs. We think that's an interesting opportunity. And then making our code coverage capabilities more comprehensive. That's an epic that I'm grooving on now, taking some of the old issues out, putting in some new issues based on new customer feedback that we're getting around code coverage and where there's problems that customers run into in lack of feature set in GitLab today, or that they're just trying to solve with code coverage data that you present to developers or present to quality folks as a change is making its way through the pipeline. And I didn't get a chance to update the slide, but a new epic that I created yesterday is around how we're going to enhance our new JUnit report. As part of that, there's a sub-epic in there of how do we improve performance for JUnit parsing, which the team is actively working on right now, trying to make that feature a lot more performant. So when you're loading 16,000 or 160,000 tests or whatever it is that run in your GitLab.org project, that page responds a lot quicker than 30 seconds after you get to it. Some features that we've recently introduced, the automatic accessibility scanning was released in 12.8, we mentioned it last month. And then in 12.9, we had full code quality report go out, which is a fun enhancement so that you're not just seeing the changes in code quality in the MR widget, you're now able to see the full report for your branch in the pipeline view. And then our next 6 releases, you'll see a change here from the last time we looked at this slide. Usability testing, accessibility testing, we've already talked through most of those, the iteration on the screenshot in there. Those categories have stayed the same. Code quality is still the same category. We've done further combination of unit testing and system testing into one category, and then called out that also includes coverage. There's a lot of issues that straddled between code quality and unit testing that were coverage issues, and things would fall one place or the other. We're starting to move all of those into the code testing and coverage category. And so just calling out more specifically that test coverage lives in there and features will live in there. So any questions on what I've already covered of recent releases, or anything here that you want to dig into, look at the issue itself? All right. So digging a little bit further in, the accessibility testing, we validated a number of those solutions. We're still working on, we have a good set of work, and like I said, looking to move that category maturity-wise beyond planned into either minimal or complete with our April release. So we're going through that UX scorecard process for the first time, which is fun. In code quality, there's iterations we want to make on that code quality report. Right now, it's just a dump of the report. So if you have a long code quality report like we do on GitLab.org, you've got a lot of pages of a lot of output. It's not super functional today. So we think that some things like search, sort, filter are going to make those results a lot more usable. But we're actively talking to folks in the issue and then in customer calls, trying to understand better what makes that that feature work for them to solve the problems that they have when they're using our code quality engine. And then after that, expanding coverage for more platforms, .NET, C#, and then showing code quality on branches so that outside of the context of the MR or having to dig into the pipeline, you can see for the various branches, like, what is my code quality? We think the use case there is someone like a quality manager or a team lead is going to be looking at how do we improve quality at this project? Let me go through and filter and find maybe some of our top files that have quality issues or our top issue or quality problems, and focus in on a set of work that circles around that so that we can find some low-hanging fruit to go in and make a big impact with not very much effort, which right now is just a real scattershot approach, MR to MR, of how you're going to improve your code quality. So that top-down view of what is the quality and how do I find like things that are deficiencies, we think can be a powerful, powerful change for folks. Then code testing and coverage. Like I said, we have some performance issues in the current method of parsing out that JUnit data on the pipeline page. There's an epic that is working on that. And after that, introducing, we've talked about the graphing of the code coverage. I say here we'll be stepping back from unit tests for a few milestones, which isn't 100% correct. We do have that follow-on epic around the JUnit report to make that, again, a little bit more functional. Same sort of things where just making the report a little more interactive. We think that's a great value add on top of just displaying the report, being able to better navigate through the tests from the jobs, better see then history. As you're looking at that, jumping into history, we think is a great value. And seeing that demo today, Mech, of what you all have put together, that spurs some ideas for me, or maybe we can just incorporate that in there so that you can see history of a test run over time from that view on the pipeline page. That could be pretty cool. Web performance on hold still. And usability is still the biggest hurdle we have, is just getting customers using the tool. We're fixing bugs, but just generally adoption is lower than we'd like. So we hope that adding those screenshot capabilities into the tool and doing some blog posts and some general advocacy for this category is going to help broaden awareness and usage of this tool that we've built in.
Is that the A11Y scanner?
No, accessibility. Accessibility can use.
I had it conflated. Got it. That's accessibility.
Yeah. With accessibility, you can use your review apps and scan against those. That's really a great use case of what did I just deploy and how has it changed. But you could also, if you have your own staging environment set up and you're deploying there, you can run the scan there as well. And then Ricky's not on the call, I don't think, but we do have Ricky, new engineering manager, backend engineering manager, and Daniel. Now we have a full team of everybody who's dedicated to testing. Yay. So really excited about those stable counterparts all being involved. Anything anyone wants to jump back to in the deck? I kind of blaze through that pretty quick, as I usually do.
One suggestion is we are having these discussions monthly, which is great. We can aim to make it a bit more lightweight and maybe just update in the doc what was different from last time in the deck. Then we can I can do some homework and read it beforehand and give you comments. That's a suggestion, but yeah, I'm happy to see that the team is staffing up and then we're making progress.
I will do that for next time. Call out where there's changes in the deck before the meeting, so that you can do some homework there.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Anything else while we have folks here? Questions for testing? Other problems that we've not talked about that have come up since we met last? All right. Well, if we don't have any questions for the Q&A component, we'll end early, give everybody a few minutes back.
Great update. Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, James.